Ahead tonight, the independence flag is raised as we get closer to celebrating 40 years.
Also ahead, the Prime Minister responding to opposition criticism about borrowing more money from China.
And the noise in the market over the price of goods. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Candino Knowles. As always, it's good to have you with us.
The 40-day countdown to the country's 40th anniversary of independence is on. We're calling it 40 to 40.
During an official ceremony in Rawson Square last evening, a proclamation to launch the 40 days of celebrations was read. In his keynote address, the nation's chief spoke passionately about the country and called on Bahamians to be more patriotic.
And in this country, at this time, we have to find the formula, not just to apply sustained law and order policies, but to somehow inspire a generation of Bahamians to understand why their pride should lead to patriotism and their patriotism should lead to loyalty to their country and to the citizens, fellow citizens of this country.
The country's steady crime problem has been a sore issue for many. But Prime Minister Perry Christie told those gathered at yesterday's ceremony that we, the majority, must not let a minority group of criminals stifle this country's progress.
Over the last 40 years, we have achieved a lot as a nation. But as I've just indicated, there is so much more that we must work toward. Our journey continues. And I believe I'm safe in saying, and proud to say, that we are headed in the right direction as a country. This year, we will pause as a united people and celebrate 40 years of being independent Bahamians. What makes this special is that we will celebrate with those who worked feverishly to usher in independence.
Governor General Sir Arthur Folkes is one of the many men and women who fought for this country's independence. In fact, he was one of the 4 opposition delegates to the Bahamas Independence Constitution Conference in London in 1972. And once the Bahamas was able to secure its independence a year later, down came the Union Jack and up went this country's flag. In his address, Sir Arthur talked about the flag, which is perhaps the single most important piece of our identity.
The color black speaks to us about our strength as a people, about the talents, industry, and imagination which we apply in the orderly use of our natural heritage and in its defense against abuse and exploitation. The color black speaks to the combined gifts of all of us, regardless of creed, ethnicity, gender, or other circumstances of history or birth. We are one Bahamas. This, then, is our flag, our bright banner, and what it says to us and to the world about our heritage, our aspirations, and who we are.
Prime Minister Perry Christie is responding to criticism from the Free National Movement for considering borrowing more money from China, especially with an already ballooning national debt.
The Prime Minister, who was in Trinidad meeting with the Chinese president over the weekend, said the Bahamas is set to benefit from 2 separate grants totaling $13 million. But Mr. Christie told reporters outside Parliament today that his government is exercising financial prudence and says the FNM is in no position to criticize his government when it comes to borrowing.
I don't understand what the FNM is, and especially if it's the deputy leader who's the minister in the government. I mean, her government broke the record in doing that kind of thing, and everybody knows the capital development budget is funded by borrowed money. So the point is, if I'm able to borrow more cheaply at 2% as opposed to 6 or 7%, it makes sense for me, since I have to borrow it in the right way for the right purpose. But listen, we are on our way, I think, to exercising fiscal discipline. It has been indicated that our targets have been met. There's every indication that if we continue along the lines we're going, that we are going to be seen to be a very successful government in the outcome that will be achieved, and that is being able to bring order back to the finances of the country.
Now, aside from the grants, the Chinese government has also made available $3 billion for countries in the Caribbean to borrow. But the Prime Minister could not say just when or what or how much his government is willing and able to borrow.
We know we have the problem with the fishing hole road. We know we have the problem, meaning that whenever there's a hurricane in Grand Bahama, you can't get to the west of Grand Bahama. That's a major problem that might need a bridge, whatever it needs. We know that the glass window bridge in North Eleuthera now only has one lane and therefore is challenged, and we need to do a new causeway, which is another major capital expenditure. Looking at jobs, we know that we may have to use some monies to lengthen the runway at the Marsh Harbor Airport to cause more flights to come in, to transform the airport in Exuma, again, where Sandals is bringing a lot of flights in, and where we're going to put an additional $3 million a year into Exuma. And so to get a return back on it, we have to look at the fact that Exuma doesn't have a dock, a real dock, and that the dock that was contemplated by the FNM is still in shallow waters, and we may have to go to another part. So these are questions that the government of the Bahamas will make policy decisions on based on our priorities and based on the fact that we only want to borrow so much money in a given year.
The government is banking on its medium-term fiscal consolidation plan with the aim of achieving a budget surplus.
This is the Christie administration also chips away at the national debt and growing the economy. Carla Palmer has more.
The government's medium-term fiscal consolidation plan includes, among other objectives, reforming the country's tax system to expand its revenue base, create jobs, expand the financial services sector, address crime, and help the less fortunate. However, in achieving these objectives to fulfill its mission of growing the economy, the government says it will have to borrow in excess of $465 million. In moving the second reading and committal of the budget bill, Minister of State for Finance, the Honorable Michael Alcides, explains.
With our medium-term fiscal consolidation plan, we are moving gradually and in a measured way in the right direction to eliminate the government's recourse to borrowing to finance its activities. In this way, we are balancing the needs for fiscal responsibility with our priorities for strengthening growth and creating jobs. Some people want shock therapy. Some people want the government to cut its expenses by a third. Some people say don't do that. Some say spend more. But we believe, Mr. Speaker, that our gradual and measured approach is the right thing to do.
As it currently stands, Minister Alcides says the government is moving in the right direction to putting the public's finances on a sound financial footing. So far, he says, the recurrent expenditure is lower than forecasted by $162 million to $1.659 million. Capital expenditure is also down by $50 million to $350 million.
The larger savings have been recorded in respect of the Department of Public Service at $29.8 million, the Ministry of Tourism $19.9 million, the Ministry of Finance $19.4 million, and the Public Hospitals Authority $17.5 million.
Minister Alcides says the government is clearly demonstrating its firm commitment to fiscal discipline and its ability to deliver on its stated objectives. For ZNS Network News, I'm Carla Palmer.
Well, seconding the bill this morning was Member of Parliament for Fox Hill and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, the Honorable Fred Mitchell.
Minister Mitchell says this budget is about the future. Here's how funds allocated to his ministry will help with economic growth.
They therefore have a stake in making sure that the Bahamas and the Bahamian people have work. Otherwise, their investments are doomed, absolutely doomed. And I say this to Emera in Freeport, the Grand Bahama Shipyard, to Club Fortuna, to Quality Services, who just don't seem to get it. And Bahamas should take stock as well here in Nassau.
Now, Minister Mitchell says he's shocked at how unsympathetic so many of our business people are, both domestic and foreign, to the reality that their profits in this country will only continue to come if there is social peace.
We're going to make it our business to find more money for this country over the next year. Yes. That's our business. I said the general rubric is to make the policy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the aim of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is to ensure that there's a seamless passage of Bahamians around the world, whether for business or tourism, whatever. That's what our job is, principal job is. But connected to this has to also be now the mission of finding capital for the Bahamas. And so over the next year or so, there'll be substantial time spent in the Middle East and Asia doing just that, trying to find and search for new sources of funding for this country, new sources of investment. It is critical that we do so, as the traditional markets and sources appear to be challenged.
Now, the debate continued this afternoon with Minister of Youth Dr. Daniel Johnson and North Abaco MP Renardo Curry.
Now, the Department of Consumer Affairs conducted a series of inspections at selected supermarkets today, ensuring that prices were in compliance with set price limits.
Officials tell us, for the most part, everything appeared to be in order, but shoppers beg to differ, complaining about grocery bills that are increasingly expensive. Here's Janae Ferguson.
Exorbitant price on sugar, flour, and those are the things that you actually need in a household all the time.
Jane Adderley is just one of the many consumers finding it difficult to afford some basic bread basket items like cream, bread, eggs, cooking oil, rice, tomato paste, sugar, and flour. But she's not alone. Other shoppers we spoke to in stores Tuesday shared similar views.
Right now, things so expensive. You come to the food store at $100 as carry on, two little bag, two little small bag, $100.
So you think it's getting out of control?
Yeah, it's getting out of control. Look at the still the paper. This should be a disgrace. I buy one of these from the pharmacy 2 nights ago for $3.30. They're already gone. I got for this one. This one cost $7 something. And things too expensive. Everything in the food store too expensive.
Some things are high and some things are low. Sometimes you could find bargain, but sometimes you can go out to other stores and find things very cheap.
Those products which lend to healthy meals are very costly. So those persons living with chronic illnesses, it's very difficult for them to maintain a diet that is conducive to better living.
Now, Chief Price Inspector Sidney McKenzie was a part of the team assessing prices at the Super Value stores on East and Nassau streets. The inspections are done about 4 times a year, and he explained the laws regarding price control.
The prices that are placed on the items in the store, the bread basket items, would reflect a 23% retail markup. Penalties could range anyway from $2,500 up to $5,000.
Given the economic challenges, McKenzie said that price control plays a significant role in stabilizing the economy.
I think if we didn't have price control on these bread basket items, a lot of people wouldn't been able to afford the cost of these items.
I think we need to try and see what we can do to help, especially at this time.
Now, inspections are not limited to these common bread and basket items, but also to clothing stores and other electronic stores as well. McKenzie says if customers find a markup price on certain items, they're asked to contact the department as soon as possible. Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
In our first look at weather, the first tropical storm for the 2013 tropical cyclone season has developed in the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see the large mass of cloud associated with that system. It is moving towards the north at about 3 miles per hour. So at 6 o'clock this afternoon, here is where it was located, 25.3 degrees north, longitude 86.5 west. It's packing winds of 40 miles per hour, and very little intensification is anticipated over the next 48 hours. The movement will continue toward the north at 3 miles per hour, but it will pick up in forward speed by late tomorrow and shifting more towards the northeast. And that puts it about 310 miles southwest of Tampa. But outside of our studios, partly cloudy skies, temperature 81 degrees, relative humidity 70%. Your winds out of the southeast at 6 knots, barometric pressure 1,014.3 millibars. That's 29.95 inches, and it is steady. But stay tuned. Temperatures around the Family Violence, travel, and boating forecast is still to come.
Well, still ahead tonight, the government looking to shore up our energy security.
And later on in sports, how good is our water polo team? Find out. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
Portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.